So, Saturday was Father's Day, and I'm a proud father. But I watched this show, and it was about a poor little kid, little 10-year-old boy who was gay. He liked to wear little bows in his hair and dress up like a girl from time to time if he could figure out how to do it. He liked to play with dolls. But he was, unfortunately, his father was just a white, drunken, drug addled pervert. Abused this kid, did ungodly things to this poor kid. Anyway, I don't know why it made me start thinking about it. I think it's because this is, you know, this month is Gay Pride Month or something like that, or LGBTQ month, and then I think it has. There's this an Indigenous month too as well. Well, I'm not sure, and I don't pay a lot of attention to those sorts of things. I actually, if my wife hadn't reminded me it was Father's Day, and my daughter hadn't called me from, I think she was in Arizona when she called, I wouldn't have known it was Father's Day. So I got to thinking after watching this movie um, about an Apache warrior who was born back in like 1840. And the reason I thought about her is because it was her. This is a person called Lozen, or Lozen, or, forgive me. I'm probably going to stumble through a lot of Apache words that I probably have no business trying to pronounce. I should just stay in my white lane, I guess. But I in some ways, for me, I think that's a little disrespectful. Don't even make an attempt to. So I'm going to attempt to, and so I apologize beforehand. Not all the words I'm going to say that are probably mispronounced. So, around 1848, there was a band of Chiricahua, Chenene band of the Chiricahua Apaches, and I think I'm not sure how Apaches pronounce. They don't call themselves Apaches. They're, well, maybe now, but back in the day they were Nade, something like that. Very simple little word that I can't pronounce, obviously. And if there's any Apaches out there, please feel free to get my comments and tell me just whatever you want. So, there was an Apache. I'm sure everybody's heard of Victoria. Well, I don't know, white people. I'm sure a lot of indigenous folks know who Victoria was. Victoria was a Chiricahua Apache warrior. I don't know if he had any kind of title or anything. Those sorts of things were earned in most tribes whatever level you became, or not level, but what I mean, the respect that you earned from your people. So anyway, Victoria's sister's name was Lozen, and in around 1848, village was attacked by Spanish soldiers. Half the population was wiped out, including their parents. They had managed to hide, but they witnessed the whole thing, and of course they took off and spent the rest of their lives pretty much um, running and hiding and dodging and fighting and trying to survive, the onslaught of white people on this continent. Um, they also weren't, they were kind of they fought amongst the tribes, especially out west. Hadn't quite figured out what to do or band together or anything. So if they could have, well, I don't want to get into any of that. So anyway, so in this time period, Lozen decided that she did not want to be take up the mantle of what women did. She wanted to be a warrior. So she did. And her brother Victorio was, a couple of 4 years older than she was. That's not very clear in the different things that I read. And but anyway, she learned all those things. She learned to, shoot and ride and track and all the things that a warrior did, and scout. And at the same time that happened, she was also a shaman, which means spiritual advice. It doesn't mean like witchcraft or anything. And she was also a healer because she was she knew the plants and trees and things that could help people out if that was necessary for them, if they became sick or something. She was also a midwife, and as a side note, I think her name means, which was given to her later, I don't know what her original name was, but I think Lozen means good at stealing horses or something like that. So this woman went, all this. Then years later, her brother was down in Mexico, hiding out with other Apache people that were in the Sierra Madres in northern Mexico, and they were attacked by Mexican army again, and Victoria was killed. And I think his family at that time was killed again. His family that he had. So Lozen escaped that and headed out, and then she ended up in Geronimo's band. Geronimo was also Chiricahua, but he was, from a different band of Chiricahua. Now, I can't pronounce the name. So then, this is Lozen, and they're just trying to, like I said, survive basically. So she meets Destine, and I think that's how you say it, um, and they become, um, you know, partners. Now, I'm going to get to the point of all this, which is that Lozen was called Two Spirit. She was as we would say today, gay. Two Spirit, I found out, is a newer word that was um, coined by an Anishinaabe woman, I believe. She was Ojibwe from up in the Leech Lake area. Because she wanted to stop the colonizers, or the white American depiction of gay people, because they were, all the terms we use were so derogatory. Whatever. Everybody knows the terms, right? So she coined the phrase, kind of two spirit. I'm sure in the culture before the white man came, that in the tribes that respected their gay population, that they had way more eloquent names for them. Oh, a little thing about Destine. Now, she was married and had 2 children. Her husband was killed by Comanches, and her 2 children were killed by the Mexican army. So she ended up in Geronimo's camp. So anyway, they had an amazing love affair, and she became Lozen's partner, and they were together for several years, all the way up until the Chiricahua finally stopped fighting under Geronimo and went and was conned by General Crook to come in. And then he gathered up all the Chiricahua and sent them to Florida. He even, the guys that were hired as scouts by the 7th Cavalry, and whatever, were working on that were hunting their own brothers and sisters. Well, sorry, buddies, and so they got snagged up too, and so this picture over here is about the only, I've seen a painting of Lozen, but and even the people that in the painting said that this is a likeness, but possibly not. So there you have that. I don't know. I didn't want to show it because this is actually the probably the only photograph of Lozen that there is. Destine, she lived to be a lot older. She made it. Now, in this picture, Lozen's in her late 40s. She's almost 50. So you think about Lozen now. She was 8 years old. From the time she was 8 years old until she was taken captive by the United States Cavalry, all she'd ever known for about 40 years was, fighting and hiding and, doing little raids and whatever. She never knew. She never had any real peace in her life. Probably the only peace that she had was a few moments with her great dear friend. So I'm not going to get into the exploits. I mean, if you go on the internet and you can Google Lozen, and you have to dig pretty deep because they don't really talk about her being two-spirit. Eventually, you can find a couple of things that do. So, and here's the cruelty of, these white people. They loaded them up into this cattle car and shipped them off to Florida. Ship a bunch of desert people to Florida, number one. And they knew what was going on between Destine and Lozen. So when they got to Mobile, Alabama, they separated them and they took Lozen and threw her in a prison. I think it was Mount Vernon, they call it. I don't know if it's still there in Mobile or not. And then Destine went on to St. Augustine. And I lived in Pensacola for a while, and everybody talked about the Apaches living out in Fort Pickens, but I've never seen any evidence or read any evidence of that except for in Pensacola. That doesn't mean they didn't stop off there for a bit or were housed there for a little bit in their travels. I don't know about that. And it's pretty insignificant to what I'm talking about anyway. So, Lozen gets dropped off in Mobile, Alabama, and dies of, I think it was tuberculosis or one of those, lung things. So she dies. And, of course, Destine doesn't find out for quite a while, but then she's just devastated, heartbroken. People say that she was pretty much heartbroken for the rest of her life. But, so the Apaches that were left, including Geronimo, the ones that made it through the disease and all the stuff, living in the prisons, and they finally shipped them off to Oklahoma, and they went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. They still had, I think there still is a small band of Fort Sill Apaches, they call them, that are the remnants of the Chiricahua. And then Destine was given the opportunity to go back and live in the with the Mescaleros. So I don't know if they never really say what band that Destine was from, but her husband being killed by Comanches makes me think she was more Mescalero, because the Mescalero was closer to that Texas area where the Comanches roamed, and I'm sure their hunting grounds collided and things like that. But I don't know, and it's not really clear in any of the histories that I found about these two. So anyway, and she ended up getting married again to a man, and then she ended up having 3 children. And this was not considered any kind of even though she had her relationship with Lozen, that was not ever considered to be, a bad thing or disrespectful or anything. As a matter of fact, and I don't know if all tribes were like this, but Lozen was considered a two-spirit person, which means that she was amazing because she had both, male and female spirits in her. The way the indigenous folk looked at it, it was an amazing thing. And these people were, in a lot of tribes, were revered, and became medicine men and warriors. And I found out I don't know how true this is, but there was another Cheyenne woman name of White Buffalo Road woman. And rumor has it that she's the one that ended George Armstrong Custer. It wouldn't surprise me one bit, actually. So anyway, I talked about this because I was thinking about this poor little kid who was so abused by his white father. And then I was thinking about, in general, in our American bullshit Christian, dystopian, weird, bizarro world that we live in, compared to how the Two-Spirit people were respected and honored and revered by the indigenous people. The true inhabitants of Turtle Island. And so I wanted to make the comparison simply because if, these children, and 350,000 trans children, and I don't know how many gay children there are, probably 1 million or more, a lot. How they're treated. I just, it all just breaks my heart. I can't believe it for the most part. And then I look at how, who really are the real savages here. These right-wing Republican maniacs that are raping children and doing all this other stuff, and trying to blame it on the left or whatever their thing is. I'm having a hard time with all that. And I just hope that there's a lesson maybe for somebody that's young and who is going through this trauma. Just know that there are people on the planet that think that you are a special person, a special human being, and that the Great Spirit has given you, all this power, really. You have insights within you that some heterosexual white dude like me I will never have that. I'll be deprived of that actually in my life. I don't understand the hatred. I don't understand all this transphobia and all this, hatred for gay people. And here's the other thing. I see all these rights being taken away. It's not anybody's business, is it? Isn't raising your child, regardless of whatever that child's situation is, personal family business? Where's the government get off being involved in that? That kind of shit has to stop. I thought these right-wing people were, they didn't want the government nosing around in their business, but it seems like ever since the Supreme Court gave them, this anti-abortion thing and this whole trans thing that they're going through, they're just going nuts and trying to take everybody's rights away from them. And not just trans rights, but everybody's rights. So, anyway, I think that if a lot of you would look towards your indigenous brothers and sisters and read a little bit about their culture, that you could maybe find a little bit of solace and a little bit of peace. they've had any peace. But maybe there's a future, that can be where you can be blessed as a human being. So anyway, that's all. I guess it was almost a silly comparison, but I don't know. I just think that everybody needs to be treated with respect and dignity, no matter what, no matter your skin color, no matter what your persuasions are. I've known, being a musician for so many years, I've known a lot of gay people, male and female. And with the exception of me having to tell a few male gay dudes to, hey, cool it, I'm not that way. I've never had a problem with gay people, ever, in my life. I've sat and had even many a conversation. My wife's has friends that are gay. My next door neighbor and another place I lived was gay. Never had any problems with him. Perfectly nice, normal man. Anyway, I'm not going to say much more about all this. Just know that there's people out there that are on your side and they care about you. And if there was anything anybody could really do, and I'm talking to, troubled gay kids. I'm talking troubled any kids, really, but especially these gay and trans kids, because it looks like they're trying to actually pass laws against you. I don't know how that makes you feel, but it makes me feel angry and very sad. I can't imagine what it's doing to a child, 10-year-old child. And these Christian people. I don't know if they're all white. There's probably black people that feel the same way, and there's probably Hispanic people that feel the same way, and that are abusers of their children. But I think white people are the main culprits in this. And me being white, that doesn't make me feel really good. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. If anybody's wondering why I haven't made any videos lately, I've had a lot of crap going on, and I'm just now starting to get back into feeling semi-normal. But so I'll probably be doing some videos now, but I'm probably gonna keep it down to about one a week, because I don't know. I'm just gonna do them whenever I want to do them. I don't give a shit. No time frame, just whenever. I do have one on boomers that I want to do, because I've been watching these boomer idiots. I'm a boomer. All right. I'm going to say good night. I'm going to say I live in Florida, so adios, mi amigos y mi amigas, and buenas noches.